Bam. You're going to say, "Hi, this is Kathie Feng, and you're watching the Break It Down show." Say that. That'll get us started.
All right. Hi, this is Kathie Feng, and you're watching the Breaking Down show.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show. I am told that this is your first, since you've been on Podmatch, your first podcast that's not only being recorded, but published.
Yay. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Super exciting chatting with you guys.
Yeah. Brad's my buddy up top. He knows a lot about AI and all these things. Of course, I'll put your link for your website in here so everybody can kind of check you out. But also go on LinkedIn and check out Kathie's links. I'll put that up in a second too. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Brad. Thanks for helping. I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys chat.
Wow. Kathie, why don't you tell us about your service and your website? Just give us a brief overview of it and we'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everyone. I'm Kathie Feng. I am a founder and also a growth architect behind Signal Growth, where I really help the founders as well as SMB owners to turn momentum into market dominance. And then over the last decade, you guys can see the website here, but I've led growth for some of the world's most iconic brands. My last gig was at Constellation Brands in the manufacturer of Corona Modelo, where I drive go-to-market strategy and digital media growth for the company, as well as before it was Pave. It's a A16Z backed fintech unicorn. And then before that, I was at Discover Financial Services, now acquired by Capital One. So overall, over a decade of experience across fintech, CPG, consumer tech, as well as the alcohol and beverages. So now I founded the Signal Growth, where I help founders and entrepreneurs to really drive that go-to-market strategies using that Fortune 500 company frameworks that otherwise they won't have access to. So essentially, we encapsulate over decades of experience of the Fortune 500 companies' growth secrets, and then really help my clients to drive that hyper growth from marketing and then AI perspective. And then usually, I've been able to help my clients to deliver 6 or 7 digits of the growth within 90 to 120 days. So some of the key success that have been delivered for this year. And then I'm also excited to help any of the potential prospects on your programs as well.
Wow. So let's say I come to you and I'm an entrepreneur and I have a little box, and it's a little AI box. This actually is for real, but I'm not asking for free advice here on Pete's podcast. I'm just giving you a prop to work with. What's the first thing we do? What do I do as coming to signalgrowth.com? How's that going to look for me?
Yeah. So first of all, we diving into what's your challenges, right? So like each firm or each product, they're at the different growth stages. So first of all, we want to understand where is your growth stages. Are you at the ideation place, or are you actually have some tractions of your products or your companies? So have you done any tests? What are your core ICP? So ideal customer profiles. Those are also very important things we want to understand. So essentially, as we want to define your core product offers as well as your ideal customer profiles, then we will work together to really map out that message market fit to make sure that whatever the communication output that's coming up, we are talking to your core ideal customers with the effective and efficient messages that drive their actions. So that requires a lot of test and learns in terms of what other key concepts, key creatives, or even key messages that are resonating with your different audience and potential different audience segments. So throughout my career, I've been helping companies to really mapping out the brand and consumer persona, as well as what other key messages should be delivered into the market for test. So with that framework, we were able to really help the customers to really position their brand, their products, their firms, as well as develop a really effective and efficient message portals to really drive the customer success. So that would be a step one. And the step two is essentially really get clarity of what your product is offering, right? So is your product that's currently sitting in the sweet spot that's converting the audiences, as well as your pricing strategies. So is your pricing strategy on the higher end, lower end, or just about right? So all of the different kind of components of the business will require some test and learn structures, which I typically help with my clients and work through every single step of the way to come up with the compelling offer, as well as compelling messages that we are ready to go to market. So that's a lot to say, but that's basically the first step of kind of figuring out your offer, figuring out your customer, as well as your pricing strategy, so you're ready to market.
So it sounds like, I mean, and using the AI strategies and tying into that, that's kind of a new thing and whatever else. You're probably aiming more at new products, new ideas, new companies than say established companies. Is that a good guess for your market fit?
Yeah, so for me, it's funny because my market fit actually are at the growth stage of the founders. So anybody who, like from AI founder perspective, anybody who has 3 million to 20 million ARR, potentially post Series A, where they have a clear, product statements, but then they really need scale. So for my past experiences at Fortune 500 companies, I've been managing budgets from anywhere from 50,000 per month to 3-4 mil per month, which is like a 50 plus million per year. So that stage is really resonating with the post Series A stage, that you really want hyper growth and understanding what other potential roadblocks down the line when you are scaling to kind of like a Fortune 500 company scale, because I've made those mistakes. So the founders I'm working with don't need to make them anymore. I have already kind of proven bulletproof framework from all the big company execution that can help founders really scale and get there faster. So that's my ideal customer profile. But some of my clients at the pre-seed stage, which has also come to me because they need some brand positioning, understanding the product market fit before they go to market. So I do have some clients are like that, but most of them are client, and also my sweet spot is essentially founders past 3 mil ARR.
So one of the things you mentioned, one of the projects you mentioned in your intro was Modelo. I'm an old man. Pete's an old man too. Pete's actually older than me. I'm 55 years old. When I was a teenager growing up in Danville, California, 40 years ago, we had a Mexican restaurant that we absolutely loved. We were there on its opening day, and they had Modelo, and it was in the distinctive bottle. The bottles look exactly the same today that they looked 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was such a niche brand that nobody knew what anybody was talking about. My dad said, "Oh yeah, we go to El Nido and I always get a Modelo with, the burrito and whatever else." Yeah. Nobody knew what he was talking about. And today it's actually the number one brand of beer, like not even import. It's the number one brand of beer in America.
Yeah.
Right. What happened there, and where did you coincide with that? Because I got to tell you, I just woke up one day and I heard Modelo was the number one beer. Oh, whoa, wait, what did I miss?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah, that's funny because that's back in my days when I was with Constellation Brands, the manufacturer of Corona, Modelo, Pacifico, all the Mexican beers, and also we had hundreds of different wine and premium spirits. So to your question, like what specific instances, is kind of like, it's interesting because before that, Budweiser was the number one beer, like in the US. But because of some sort of scandal, like some of you guys might be aware. So
Dylan, what's his name? Yeah.
So because of that, I think I would say it's misaligned between your marketing campaigns as well as your target audiences, that kind of a little bit backfire. And then Modelo just, because of that, Modelo become the number one beer, and then people start supporting Modelo even more compared to before. And then of course the beer tastes good, and then it's just the branding is also nice. We have a beautiful story, really resonates to Mexican and Hispanic audiences. So the beer has been selling itself. The ROI has has been really strong anyway. So that was a beautiful coincidence to make Modelo become the #1 beer of the United States. And that's where my days at Constellation Brands.
Because I would have guessed if I had to pick those 3 brands and like which one would have become the #1 beer. I mean, Corona, obviously. Right. I mean, Corona and lime, in a bottle. I mean, that's been my go-to since I was 21. Yes, that's when.
Legacy.
Right? Not a day before, right? But
yeah.
That's funny though. I mean,
it's funny. Like when I was at Constellation Brand, my favorite beer was actually Pacifico. I don't know if you had a Pacifico before, but it's also a very strong brand. I like the taste. Like my second favorite was Modelo, but Pacifico, because the brand positioning is coming from more kind of like the South, kind of like a SoCal, like a server brand. So it's a lifestyle to begin with. And then we target Gen Z and also beer drinkers, like really kind of rigorously. The brand was 100% digital execution. So you're seeing a lot of digital out of home, like CTV, social, and then search executions compared to Modelo or Corona, where you see a lot of high profile sponsorship, sports sponsorship, etc. So there's some sort of nuances in terms of when the company was executing marketing initiatives across the board. But from taste perspective, it's interesting because I have this just special love for Pacifico. That was also one of my brands. That was actually my favorite brand back in Constellation brand days.
That's funny. Do you think the surge in Modelo sort of coincided with maybe the popularity of soccer among wider audiences in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a great question, because Modelo does execute a lot of high-profile sports sponsorships, and then they have this tagline called "Fighting Spirits," which is really resonating with our sports spirits. So I think with effective marketing and also branding operations, that really sets Modelo into specific audiences, as well as the distribution was great, right? So if you go to a bar, you will see Modelo everywhere. Even go to the retailers, you always see the best shelf space that's reserved for Modelo. So with all the different operations from, distribution, marketing, PR, or even high profile sponsorship, really sets Modelo to the top of mind awareness within the United States like audiences. So that's definitely some like key successful contributors to the brand success.
So if I were to guess who was going to topple Budweiser, my guess definitely would have been Molson Coors, right? I mean, who would, like, what, 10 years ago, that would have been my guess. I mean, they just always kind of chugged along. They were always like the #2 thing. How would they when Budweiser stumbled, how would they not be the ones to take their place? So how were they not the ones to take their place? Like they consolidated the 2 brands. What was that? That was like Molson Coors was like late 2000s.
Is that Miller too? Is it Miller, Molson, and Coors all the same brand now?
I think they are the same company.
Yeah.
InBev, right? Is that InBev?
No, I think InBev is Heineken, and then Molson Coors, they are their own company.
Yeah, I would have thought I would have thought they would have taken over the #1 spot if Budweiser failed, but they, who knows? And and you go to the Denver area, like they're so huge.
Yeah,
you think they're just waiting for their chance, and then they don't get it. And do you think that was kind of maybe a lack of execution where you guys were executing so well?
I think just even from spending perspective, Constellation Brands definitely one of the top, kind of like the alcohol beverage companies that are spending tons of marketing efforts. And then in addition to marketing from pay media perspective, we also have lifestyle experiential execution, which focus on trade marketing, field marketing. So it's more kind of like a 360 degree of execution. I didn't work for most Coors Light, so I don't know like what their marketing execution was, but compared to Constellation Brands, I would say we were probably one of the biggest, the toppest alcohol and beverage company that spent a lot of good in paid media as well as marketing executions. So that could be one of the factors that people have been seeing the ads, as well as all the different exposures to, this liquid to lips experience, like even go to stadiums, the distribution was great. So they're just all over the place. So you've seen them, you've heard them, you've also tasted them. So like it will be easier for, Constellation Brands portfolio to set up from like for success because all the different exposures through marketing. I'm a marketing person, so my
no,
opinions might be biased, but of course sales and then other operational success also contributed to the brand success.
So Pete did some field marketing in the alcohol space.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you he's got some good questions here about,
of course,
the overlap there.
Well, so just going back to the sports and targeting the right accounts, I would love to be the Dodgers sales guy because they already have an account with Modelo, and they're one of the team sponsors. And I would love to come back with the re-up contract and be like, "You're welcome," because it's not going to be less money to advertise for the Dodgers right now. And so, like, how do you attribute the success? Do the Dodgers get to say that's our brand? 4+ million people in the stands, all of Southern California, parts of LA or Las Vegas. Who owns that success? I mean, it's obviously a team effort, but they're for sure going to say, "Hey," I mean, it is like if you sell a magazine ad, 14 million people see this thing, but we only put out 14,000 magazines. So what portion of this belongs to these high-powered brands that they choose? They obviously chose wisely, but what portion of that belongs to them?
You mean belongs to the Dodgers or belongs to the brand?
Yeah, in this case, the Dodgers, right? Yeah.
What portion of the brand, like you mean identity or like the success contributed to?
The success of the campaign, right? Mm-hmm. So the Dodgers obviously bring an audience, but Modelo also has exploded as a brand, during that relationship. So if the Dodgers are saying, "Hey, we're going to re-up the contract, but it's 10% more now," because look at what we did. How much of that is accurate?
This is like probably beyond like what I can share or like what I would know because that wasn't executed by me. So, but then I would say like from as far as what I know, like we have a lot of different kind of high profile sponsorships with a different sports team. So Dodgers one of them, but then for different beers, different, wine and spirits, we all have a different sponsorships, and that was negotiated by brand and also via experiential marketing team as well. So like if you would ask me, I would still say it's collaborative team efforts and also a good decision making from the executive side. But that's also before, like not currently I'm managing that. That was before like a couple of years back. So I wouldn't be able to like represent like what would be the success. I would just like from my experience, it's all collaborative.
How close do you think the Modelo Dodger tie-in that we see today is, say, to a very historical one like Dodgers former John?
Which is no longer a thing, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right? It isn't. That's a funny thing, right? Yeah, just
76 is still a Dodger brand.
Yeah, 76. Right, 76 might be another one. But I mean, how close is Modelo to being that like iconic of a brand for longtime Dodger fans? Is it the length of time, or is it the positioning? Is it they're just there? And hey, by the way, the reason I ask this is because while Pete and I could talk sports and beer all day long, right? Yeah. It's a great example of where you've been and like what what kind of thinking that you apply to where you're going. For small startups and or actually for startups that are just shooting up.
Yeah.
Like how do you think about those things?
Yeah. So I would say from my experience, like just take Constellation Brands as an example. The company has a very exciting portfolio of brands. Now they've divestiture most of their wine brands, but when I was there were beer, wine, and spirits brands. So there are brands that are different life cycles. So there are like the new to world brand, more kind of like the startup pre-seed stage, but there's a hyper growth brands like Modelo or Corona, like you guys mentioned. So if I were to kind of like kind of like using this as analogy in terms of my current client base, I would be saying, for example, the new to world brand will be the pre-seed startups that I'm currently helping, that they need brand positioning, like defining ICPs, understanding what are the omni-channel strategies that are most effective for them. While there are Series A plus or even like stronger or hyper growth startup brands could be the iconic brands like Corona Modelo, but with a different media and marketing spends, right? So it's still not Fortune 500 level. But then, like, if you would look at how do we really drive the hyper growth of the post Series A startups, it's essentially a very strong framework as well as a very rigorous test and learns to understand your market, your audiences, what are the success factors, and then really be able to scale, like once you find the winning combination of your media execution, your audience strategies, as well as your the ways to optimize your media or even marketing efforts. And that's where you can start continuously scaling and then get to where the Fortune 500 company brands are. But it's kind of like, it's a long game, but then essentially how I help post Series A startups is really to define the frameworks that's proven successful for Fortune 500 companies and being able to implement within the firm, as well as driving that go-to-market and the test and learn strategies to make sure the framework is customized only for the clients that I'm currently working for and the success specific to them. So that's just what I want to highlight. But essentially, to your point, in order to get to that level, first you need to have a very clear brand positioning, know your offer, know your audiences, and then third is the strong framework that's bulletproof, and then be able to scale. So that was a long answer, but hopefully that answered your question.
That's really good. How do you deal with a company that has to pivot while they're in the middle of your brand care, basically? You know,
Yeah.
like the market changes. I mean, you know, we're in this very early AI thing right now. I mean, there's a lot of things from European regulation, U.S. regulation approach to you know, Amazon outages, privacy disasters, you know, whatever else you could anticipate that could significantly change a company's course just because they have to adjust to, you know, like you know, dinosaurs and meteors, right? And they have to adjust to that kind of an event and keep going. Have you faced that with some of your high growth companies? And
yeah, definitely. A lot of pivots, especially for pre-seed startups, basically they pivot every day, if not, or like every week. So there are just so many new things that they have to try. And in the initial stage is less stable. So there's a lot of pivots on directions, products, offers, or even customers. So I've worked with early stage startups that has a lot of pivots, but even at the growth stage or hyper growth startups, like you mentioned, they still have pivots, right? So it will be less frequent compared to the early stage. But to your question is, when the company needs to pivot, like what I would recommend is definitely understand the reason that why you need to pivot. Is it because the product that's not selling, you feel that your growth is stuck, and then you need to like kind of diagnose like what are the key reasons that, you know, derive from the pivot. So either from pivot from different market, pivot from different products, or even different pricing strategies. So when there's changes, any changes in organizations, my personal approach is coming from the data-driven and consumer-driven perspective, is really to understand what has the past performance look like for you and what the future outcome would be. So, so for any pivot, I will definitely kind of like set up a projection as well as the model, like a business projection perspective, to make sure each pivot would get to where you want to be from the hyper growth perspective. So that would be that's more suitable at the later stage of the startup, because you already have traction, you have like a proven success for some of your campaigns, as well as more historical data that you can refer back to. So for the future pivots, anything that needs to change, that we would do like kind of like a business projection and the modeling to make sure where you change is going to where you want to be. And then, but for the initial stage of the startups, it's more kind of like the consumer feedback loop to understand who are your consumers to find that product market fit.
I noticed that you have a quick funnel aspect to what you're doing how do you help companies? But the pardon me, how do you help companies with that? The one thing I've noticed is I've looked at that for my own business and a business that I'm starting. There's a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
for the click funnel strategy, and so it's a big investment in time, obviously money, and it tends to be it's a profit center, but also it's an effort center that I struggle with knowing, like, is that the right avenue to go? How do you help companies sort out that click funnel approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like again, so first question is definitely which stage of the game are you in, right? So
Right.
there's different approaches in terms of early stages versus later stages, as well as what other, activation channels, the potential like, outcomes of the business. So first is definitely I will understand like which stage are you in, and then once we define which stage are you in, there's a different framework that will apply to different stage of the game. So, for example, if you're at the early stage, and then how early is your company or your product, and have you solidified your audiences or your message or even your product offer and the pricing yet? So, the business, there are so many aspects of the business that needs to happen for this business to be successful. So what I do with my client at the earlier stage is really to sit down and then really discuss like what are the current state are you in, and what are the bottlenecks that you're currently facing, as well as what do you envision yourself to go like maybe next year, like what's your 36 and 90 days as well as a year plan, and then how can we get there. So once we have all those jotted down, we will be able to kind of discuss what will be the channels or activations that will suit your business needs. But of course, there are nuances from industry, like B2B execution will be different from B2Cs, like the coaching programs, like online digital products will also be different from, like the SaaS products, right? So there are just so many nuances that needs to take into considerations for myself and my team to like provide a customized solutions. But once we have that narrowed down, I think good news is from scaling perspective, it's a lot of similar frameworks that can be applied to. So that's where I can utilize the Fortune 500 company frameworks to really help companies scale. Once we do have the core, set it in and understand your offer, your pricing, your message market fit, and that's where we can start doing a lot of different testing that's applicable for like from Fortune 500 company frameworks, as well as AI automated systems. I know that's a lot of answers, but like hopefully that makes sense. But
No, you give big meaty answers. So, okay, you said the words AI right there at the end. How in the
yeah.
world do I use AI in this setting so that it's because here's the thing that Brad and I both know, and Brad's taught me this, so he gets all the credit, is
Hmm.
language models don't think, they don't do math, they don't actually access websites. So I want to use it, but how do I use it so that I'm not fooling myself? Because
Yeah.
I find these holes all the time where I'm like asking AI a question you want it to answer, but it gives you an answer, but it can't actually answer the question accurately.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Like I definitely believe a lot of people like encountering similar things. So like I would say like a couple things to know. One is the prompt engineering is very important. Is AI just basically responds to how you ask them. So like it will need to be like some sort of kind of like almost kind of like the framework in terms of what kind of questions they ask and what kind of setup that needs to be happen, and then what kind of tone you want this AI to answer. And then like so basically it has to be like in a structured way when you even ask questions, and then AI, because it's still a kind of like a software to help you get where you want to be. So like if you master the prompt engineering, the output from the AI will be drastically different from if you just and like ask random questions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is AI is pretty powerful, but it's not everything. So like I don't think people can rely on AI to produce everything. I think the biggest winning combination at this stage of the game. It's still work with a senior marketer or senior people or senior executives that can help you get there with the help of AI. So for example, AI could be very literate in terms of maybe they are very knowledge in terms of what can be scraped online, but there's still a lot of nuances, especially like in the professional services field. So for example, you will not take legal advice from AI, right? Like you will not like ask medical advice from ChatGPT. So those are the things that you still cannot be replaced. Same as like in marketing. So a lot of
Takes
times
his legal brief and tears it up.
Right.
yeah, maybe like in
Take
5
this brief.
years, but right now,
Yeah.
if the doctor
Yeah.
is not telling me this is a go, I wouldn't go because ChatGPT told me, right? Like so those are still like the nuances at this stage of the game. I don't know what will be like in 1 year or two, but right now I think the most powerful combination is still working with professionals that have AI enabled systems that can get you where you want to be like 5x faster. So so for me it's, sorry, were you gonna ask something?
No. I'll interrupt when I'll find a better spot. It's okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. So for me, is how I help with my client as well as my team is we use AI powered systems to really help you get there faster. But then we still infuse executive level of the knowledge where we encapsulate like Fortune 500 company bulletproof frameworks that really help you get where you want to be and set up the test and learn strategy to avoid making more mistakes because we already have the experience to help you get there. So I personally consider this is like the strongest combination in terms of the senior leadership execution as well as the help of AI. So that's how I help my clients to do what they want to do.
So if you're my client, pardon me, if I'm your client and you're helping me sell this,
yeah,
I probably do not interact with AI systems in order to help you deliver what you're going to deliver to me. That's your back end and your secret sauce of what you're helping me with. Is that?
That's yes and no. So I have two different offers. One is done with you and another one's done for you. So some of the clients that I work with, they already have their internal teams, but maybe they're more junior or maybe they don't have experience that myself and my team has. So they are kind of scratching their head, like trying to figure things out. So that's the done with you offers my team offers. So we kind of ingest our expertise into the overall systems and work with their my client's team like really closely in helping them and guiding them every step of the way, setting up the system, setting up test and learn strategies and digest insights fast and like more accurately based on the actual campaign execution. So that's a done with you offer. And the done for you may be more for kind of like early stage founders that they have no teams yet. Then that will be a done for you system where myself and my team jumps in and actually takes your marketing efforts away from your play. So like you have one thing less to worry about and you don't need to learn what is CP and CPC and how do I optimize, like a different day part or like, what is multi-touch attribution, like all the things that you don't need to learn from scratch because we already have more than a decade of experience to really help you get to your success faster.
So it really sounds like if I'm an entrepreneur or business leader that comes to you, I'm going to judge you more on like what you can deliver and what you do deliver on an ongoing basis than I am on the AI tools. The AI tools, like right now, the mindset of most people is AI is so smart. I can't wait to use it to make myself more efficient. And I think as the tools, that changes a little bit to, I sure wish I was looking with a real person here. And in reality, they're really working with you. So whether they see it as your AI assisted or you're more experiential, and you've got this track record of doing great things, that's where they're going to get the value. I mean, is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's the case. Yeah. So if you want to compare my AI system versus another person's AI system, it's going to be the same thing. Like there are just softwares out there for people to leverage, but then the people who are using them is the key differentiator, right? So how do you utilize the existing AI system to, kind of craft more strategic and more efficient, execution as well as optimization that gets your business results faster than anybody can. That's a differentiator. So just to your question, yes, we use AI enabled systems, but there's nothing proprietary, right? It will be the same AI systems you can find anywhere in the market. But I think it's the person and the team and the strategy behind that get you where you want to be faster and different from other people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to have the same question and answer a year from now. Just what people's how people's perception of, is AI really empowering? Is it just some other tool that we're using? Is it getting in the way? What's it doing? Because I think that's going to shift.
Yeah.
One direction or another.
Another example. So right now I'm looking for mortgages. So the process of how it works is you go online, you fill out the system. It's like you want to refinance, cash out refinance, or you want to actually buying a house. And then they prompt you with all the different questionnaire. And once you're done, they send you either it's a lead aggregator. They send you a bunch of mortgage, like your information to a bunch of mortgage companies, and then you will start getting calls. So 10 years ago, you get calls immediately. But right now, you start getting calls from AI agent, or maybe like text messages from AI agent. So everything can be done through text message, as opposed to you have to be waiting on the call or chatting with the agent on the call for 20 minutes. So that's the differences 10 years ago versus now, like in terms even mortgage applications. But AI agent itself has drastic differences, depends on who developed them. So you probably have experience of some of the AI agents. It's like they give you 5 prompts that you click, and then they answer like your questions, and then you click 1 prompt, and then they answer something, but then it's not getting where you are. So you're like furious typing, agent, get me to a real person. I don't want to talk to AI anymore. But it's just like not really responding to you, right? So that's an example of poor execution where the AI is not built right, versus some of the AI agents that are pretty good in terms of, for example, like even the mortgage agent that I was talking to, we were talking like at 10 p.m., like where everybody's almost sleeping or like doing their own thing. But that AI agent's getting me pre-approved and doing all the different things. So that's kind of like the example of when the AI can be really powerful and replace human beings at the time that we need to do something else, right? So there would be a great supplement, a great strategic enhancement if you do it right. But then when things are not done right, it creates more frictions and creates more frustration, more customer complaints. So the thing I want to address here is it's the same software that people are using, but whether you're executing right versus wrong and give you completely different results. So same thing for my team, as well as to answer your AI, like how does that work a year later from now? It will be the same, right? Like a great execution take you to heaven versus a bad execution could just, like you could just going nowhere, and then, money's down and all that kind of stuff. So
an example I constantly bring up because they did it too early. McDonald's and IBM. Now, Pete doesn't frequent the McDonald's drive-through, and never did, and I did, and I used to frequent it a lot, not so much no more. But that was a disaster.
Yeah,
like, you would hear you drive up and you hear this booming voice that doesn't sound like anything that would ever work at a drive-through.
Yeah,
and then they do the context switch where, welcome to McDonald's, how you doing? And then you hear the pimply kid, on the headset. And then you're like totally confused. Wait, I was talking to this guy. Now who am I talking to? And you say, wait, I'm here to order food. I guess that's what I'm here for. Right. So it's like cognitive overload as you get there. And everybody I talk to about this are like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's so weird. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
But do you see, I think we're, everybody that's in this customer service space or around it is still looking for the example of, hey, this was done well.
Yeah.
We got lots of great examples of this was a failure. And then of course, there's the MIT study, about AI initiatives in general that say 90% fail. And then as I add, the other 10% are lying. Right. But are there really good examples? I mean, I think you brought up one really, really key thing, which was availability of the agent. Right. I mean, at 11 o'clock at night, I'm not going to have somebody that can help me gather, mortgage stuff. That's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to stay up and do that. It's not,
right.
They're not that hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So having something that could do that is that would be a key benefit if it could execute well. But have we seen examples of things that really execute well? And how do you measure that? Like if you're obviously bringing this to, it sounds like these agent things would be something that would touch on you, because it's like, okay, how do the company that's selling mortgages is not selling agents. They're selling mortgages, right? The agent is a means to sell that and a means to gather that information. So it seems like that would be something you'd be more involved with maybe than the company itself.
Yeah. So just for quick clarification, I don't currently develop AI agents for my clients.
No. Right. Okay.
To answer your question, I think just in terms of how to evaluate if this is a success initiative, like from AI perspective, from agent perspective for mortgage, right? Like it's definitely the KPIs that the company needs to set up. For example, like the call, like the drop rate, or like how long is the length of the call, meaning like the engagement, like with the customers, right, as well as like what the success rate is, what is the next step coming out of the call. Do people still asking to, direct me to a real person, or this person actually say, thank you for answering my questions, right? So those are different things that the KPI can be set up to continuously measure the success of the agent. But then from my perspective is like, if I were to work with my clients on driving different marketing initiative, I'm a strong believer of data-driven marketing as well as consumer-driven marketing. So everything, like I will set up very rigorous KPI as well as measurement framework to ensure my client knows every single dollars they spend, they know exactly what it goes and how much ROI is driving them. So there's no marketing waste, impression waste, or anything. A lot of people have this concept of marketing some sort of fluff, like we don't know what we're spending. They're just spending a lot of money, but then in the end they tell you it's awareness. But then it doesn't need to be like that, right? Like there are so many different ways. Yeah, marketing is a very powerful thing. Like I would say, like the traditional way of sales is good. I have another example of the current clients I'm talking to is an M&A firm, and then the founder is very it's a referral based company. So just kind of like a lot of law firms, M&A firms, or accounting firms, they're all very referral based. So all of the revenue are driven by referrals, or like potentially initial stage are kind of like knocking on the door approach. But that works 10 years ago, and nowadays that no longer works, right? Because there are so many digital first initiatives that would get your name out there. People do webinars, to do podcasts like you guys, that to get like the words out there. So there's so many different ways of like increase your digital exposure, as opposed to traditionally like calling people, knocking on the door, those kind of things. So those are the power of marketing. So a good marketing can get your words out there faster and broader than anybody can with a fraction of the cost, right? So if you do a meta campaign, you can reach 30,000 people for $500, or like you can get your CPM for like $2 or $1, meaning like $2 so you can expose to 1,000 plus people. Like where can you get that efficiency, like from other channels? So that's the power of how digital enabled campaigns can do for your brands if executed well. So if you're doing a right messaging, right creatives, so those benefits are essentially amplified exponentially through a digital execution. So just one thing of how marketing can really accelerate your brand, your growth, and your awareness to the next level if you also put a right measure against it. So working with a right professional, right firm is where you can see your marketing from start to finish in a completely funnel, from every dollar you spend to the outcome of what's executed in one funnel. So there's no leakage, there's no potential awareness play, but you don't know where your marketing dollars went. So that's my belief in terms of how the effective marketing approach should be, like for my clients.
So if I'm your client, I think there's sort of two things I could take from what you just said about that marketing funnel. One is I'd like you to generate me leads, actionable leads, right? So let's call that one thing, actionable leads that I can then sell through to. The other thing is I'd like you to generate general awareness of my brand. And so those might be two. We'll set up measurables about that, and that's probably how I'll decide whether to continue my engagement with you, raise my engagement with you, or phase you out and find somebody else, right? What do you think that mix is typically right now for tech companies?
Yeah.
Versus, is it, on the ground sales, what are you generating me that I can sell to versus what kind of awareness are you generating? What do you think that mix is right now?
That's a great question. That also depends on your industry, your stage of the growth, like where are you at this kind of like a growth stage. So I would say, like, to your question, if it's a tech company, it's usually B2B, and then it's account-based marketing, right? Like, so you identify a list of customer, you digging through and basically stalking them, like their behavior, where you can find them, and then do all the different type of account-based marketing. Versus like B2C, it's a CPG company, for example, Constellation Brands or even Capital One, Discover, where they focus on one-to-one relationship to the consumer. And that's where the digital mass, like a combination of awareness as well as performance marketing, will work really well. So to your question, in terms of the mix, like percentage, how do you really look at awareness versus performance? It depends on your stage, where your company is. So, and also the strategy behind that. So it's always kind of like a battle between senior leadership as well as kind of like the branding or marketing team, because senior leadership, they want ROI, they want results, they want to make sure that whatever the dollars I'm spending, it's getting me back like positive ROI, so the business is sustainable. But from marketing perspective, is we need to drive awareness so people know, hey, this is the Apple. Like, if we heard of Apple, we already know what that is. We don't even need to see the Apple's campaign. We don't need to like have an explanation of what Apple is, because the awareness is so strong, but it takes decades to get there, right? So how do we really navigate like the gap or mitigate the gap between now and then? Like, what should we be doing in terms of the marketing mix? So like my answer to that is essentially, if you're very beginning of the stage and then within certain categories, for example, e-commerce, or maybe like the CPG categories, performance marketing has been really like, usually it's very a sweet spot for the company that's get it started. And then the definition of performance marketing is essentially what I was referring to. Is every dollar spent, you calculate your ROAS or ROI, so you know where you put your money in, and if it's sustainable for your future success. So at the beginning stage of the game, like, I think performance marketing is more important to the business to make sure the business proven success and marketing frameworks and executions proven success is sustainable for your future execution. So I would say more proportion of the money goes to the performance marketing versus awareness. And then when you're at the latest stage of the game, like for example, Corona Modelo, the product will sell itself. No, you don't need to explain what Corona is, what Modelo is. When you're at that stage, that's where you spend more money on driving top of mind awareness, meaning that we want people to take actions by just reminding them. So for example, high profile sponsorship execution, you see like, you see the ads, like in the stadium, or you see like the distribution in the stadiums. Those are just top of mind awareness to remind people, hey, it's time to drink Modelo. They don't tell you what Modelo is. They just tell you it's time to drink. So like those are the things when you're at the later stage of the game, you just want to remind people, hey, it's time to, you know, like renew your subscription. It's time to buy the product. So that's where you put like more money on the awareness play to continue driving that top of mind awareness. So people remind people it's time to take action. So I hope that answers your questions, but it really highly nuanced, depends on where your stage of the game is.
So I'd like to point something out, you know, just as somebody who's been in multiple situations where we needed some marketing. And we needed marketing to drive sales initially because we were small. And when we would bring in employee as a marketing person, the last thing they wanted to do was fill our funnel. They wanted to build the brand, right? And the funny thing is that you are, you know, you're sort of outsourced marketing. I guess that, you know, not a very sexy term for it, but that's kind of how, you know, that's how founder is going to think of it. Am I bringing this in-house, or am I having somebody else do it until I can figure it out?
Yeah.
Right. So you're outsourced marketing, and you're leading with, I'm going to fill your funnel. We're doing performance marketing. Like that is what every founder wants to hear.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we put out a job description, we get people coming to us with, hey, your brand needs, you know, we know you've got a lot invested in blue, but darn it, you're going to be yellow. That's our vision for you. And I'm like, how am I going to wait? I got this guy worried about the color of my brand rather than going and finding the people who are going to pay me tomorrow. Right. So I think that's, you know, obviously a sign of, you know, whoever's outsourcing, that they're focused on the problem. It sounds like you're focused on the problem first. And that's a powerful position to be in. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then the reason why the initial stage of the founder should outsource is because there's a funding constraints, right? Like they don't have the budget to really hire somebody at the senior level that other bigger company can do. So when you don't have that budget level, it's better to outsource. And then that comes to kind of some sort of dilemma. It's like, even outsource, there's so many discrepancy in terms of the quality than the results that each person can deliver, what each firm can deliver. So that kind of, I've heard so many people talk to me about, oh, we've get burned by marketer before, so we don't know what marketing really is. And then does that truly matter for my business, for the money I need to spend? So that's a thing that like a lot of founder will think, like basically just being like not sure about marketing because they just think marketing is really fluff. But it's the same thing as AI. Like when you put the good prompt versus bad prompt, the outcomes are completely different, right? So, so that's just some of the nuances we want to be aware of, as well as for the initial stage of the founder. If I were the initial stage of founder, I would absolutely outsource everything until I have enough capital. But I would be very cautious in finding what are the right fits in terms of driving growth. So even the reason I would say like even they have the budget to find a kind of like the full-time, like 200, 300K, like executive position, they still have to make sure that they have enough kind of like a budget or enough like kind of like a workloads or projects that can continuously have that executive execute, right? So for startups like continuously going through pivots, it really is a kind of like it is hard to keep one position remain as is. So that's why our firm comes in, because we are positioned in a sweet spot for startups like that. Like when they pivot, they no longer needs more of the performance marketing. They probably needs more sales enabled systems. They don't need to hire us anymore. So we're here to solve your problems, kind of like strategic management consultant. We coming in to really diagnose your problem, strengthen your system, and make sure you have a growth system that's gonna get you where you want to be. And then we don't need to be there anymore, because you could have some of the more junior people continuously run running that system, just maintain as is until your next milestone, you can talk to us again. So we're coming in this type of position to help founders really supercharge and then give that growth sprint whenever they need, without actually taking a full time of their capitals to deliver the results and outcomes. So long story short, this is the perfect spot for founders at that stage of the game to continue to outsource or leverage fractional executives to really supercharge their growth, because their goal continuous changes, they continues pivot their business. So they really need somebody that's more dynamic, can fit their business needs, as opposed to hire a full-time professional. That will probably end up to be like a next pivot. I don't need this person, and then I will have to fire. So like, it's just a lot of different considerations. But our firm is positioned in the sweet spot of the founders between 3 mil to 20 mil, so that they don't need to worry about the next pivot. What do we do with this extra person? That's
Right.
a lot of capital, right? And then we also provide the services that's with the senior leadership capacity without costing you a full-time commitment. So if the pricing that they hire my firm and my team like to do the projects, it's probably equivalent of, like the junior hire, but we can deliver so much better and so much more results compared to junior hire, where you still have to give directions, you have to train them, and they will figure things out for you, versus we are coming in, we have a growth sprint as well as framework that's already bulletproof and designed, and then we do customization for your firm to make sure you get where you want to be faster. So those are just a couple like benefits. I can keep on going, but just a couple of things that why the founders in this stage needs to hire like the fractional executives like ourselves.
So I'll throw another discussion topic up here, which is there's two things that you've identified that your firm can do for, my little startup that's doing these, right? Okay, so one of them is coming up with what it's kind of the big marketing stuff, coming up with what the brand is, the vision of the brand, that sort of thing. The other one is performance marketing, actually getting me, reps and opportunities to go and sell to people, which I'm probably going to be more focused on. But there's this third part that I've seen missing from lots of companies, especially engineering companies, and that is just putting a pretty face on the product itself or the copy that's handed out. I worked for this venture-funded database company, a Danish company, and they were engineering-wise absolutely brilliant. And I'm an engineer, but I can talk to customers, right? So they sent me as the lead guy out to a trade show in Paris, and I have with me 2 pillars, and the pillars are full of bullet points of what we do, and it was 3 colors. It was like this off-green, white, and black. Yeah. It was the most stale looking thing I think I've ever had to stand next to. Right. And then I have to like muster all the energy to be like a bubbly personality to engage people and whatever else, while this stale thing with all these bullet points that nobody cares about is sitting behind me. Do you find yourself doing that part of it too? Just putting a pretty face and the pretty presentation on, a technical thing? I mean, the product was awesome, right? Yeah. I mean, and draw a graphic for the product, fine. I mean, we can outsource that, but there's like this presence if it doesn't have a good look to it, right? Do you do that as well for your customers?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I would say like inevitably I will become like that kind of role. So it's just, especially if it's the AI like companies, I have a few clients are basically the CTO, CEOs that from Feng companies, engineer background, like absolutely killing their model, algorithm, MVP, but they have no idea what the marketing is. But also when they're pitching to VCs, it's also really hard, right? Because VC are seeing the same profiles over and over again, the same logos that slash in their, pitch deck. So having a little bit like a different kind of like diversity and variety like into the mix definitely helps changing the game and the grab attention. So that's definitely also like a little bit psychology factor into it in terms of like basically right now it's an attention economy. Whatever you can do to grab attention, you could be the winner. So like it's just like different. That's also the power of marketing, right? Like the departments I've worked in marketing like mostly are pretty girls or like blondes. I don't know, it's crazy, but like a lot of times are that kind of situation. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean like it's some sort of aesthetically pleasing, yes, maybe, or different, some sort of diversified opinions, diversified experiences that can bring to the table and make the whole mix more exciting and more dynamic, like to, you know, whether you want to do fundraising or you want to like grab more attentions from your customers. Yes, that I think it is definitely like a benefit to have a different team or different skill sets to adding to the overall mix.
Is that a skill set you guys bring in? And I don't mean the pretty girls and whatever. I mean, it was look, it was for those of us who were around in the 90s, it was blatant, it was awful. It was like it was hard to be part of. It was hard to watch. I mean, and you know, look, I feel like one summer I pimped out my sister, you know, because she was tall, good looking, and I would just say, I want to talk to that person. We'll make it happen, right? And you know, I mean, I have no shame. But it's not really like that. But I mean, we have this problem right now of we make great products. You know, they work really, really well. When the customer sees them, they're really good. But when the look is can just be awful, especially with people who just aren't artists to begin with. And then people who are artists notice it, right?
Yeah.
And we know we're lacking there. Is that something your firm brings in too?
Yeah, 100%. I would call it just like the A/B test, right? Like it's a message market fit. Like when you want to put your message out there, you're going to find what is the winning message, just like your team. You want to find a winning team, the winning person that's executing your campaign, that's helping your hyper growth. So I would say it's the similar concept, like my firm can help founders, like really providing that complementary skill sets and the things that their team currently doesn't have, that we can fill in the gap and help them to kind of like complement, well, just like, you know, going in a full circle and then be able to complement different skill sets and driving marketing initiatives or even like executing pitch decks. So there's a different scope of service my firm provides, but some of them, yes, to like, you know, give or take could be something like what you mentioned.
So you mentioned something really interesting, which is fill the gaps, which is, I mean, that's been my career, is fill the gap. And how much filling of the gap do you know, how quickly do you get to we're filling the gaps? And then how much filling of the gap do you do in executing these things versus sticking to the plan?
Yeah, I love this question. And then this is a little bit about my personal superpower, is that I love my fractional work because I'm able to work with different businesses, diagnose different business problems, and then finding solutions quick and address them. So this gives me some sort of intellectual stimulations. I love to see all the different things. I love to learn things continuously. So, and then I am confident that usually my learning curve is really fast in terms of the business when I start talking to my clients and then get on, you know, their business, start doing different things, learning more background and figure out go-to-market testing strategies, having executed campaign, distill insights, and then fielding into the next campaign execution loop. Totally, I would say within 90 days, we can see some sort of the results that are already established, which will be different from any of the junior marketers or any other potential marketing teams that I've seen in my past over decades of a career. Like usually people would take 3 to 6 months to see initial results from marketing perspective. But I can guarantee, and I'm very confident in terms of deliver results within 90 days, because a lot of things are, you know, framework-based execution. And then I've already done this through all the different massive execution from Fortune 500 companies. So framework-wise, it's very easy to adapt. And then I have this passion and also special superpower in terms of understanding what consumer needs and wants, who you should be talking to, as well as what's the best and most effective way to talking to your audiences and get you success. So I would say, just in general, within 90 days, we should be able to see some sort of results. And then post 90 days, we can also have a different type of milestones and make sure that every step of the way you have tracked your KPIs, your success, and what your future outcome would be.
So Kathie, you are definitely a gap filler. I mean, I would just say that seems to be like your let's figure out where the gaps are, what can we fill, and how can we turn this into success quickly. Right. And that's all right. So I'll compare notes with you, but I'm going to answer the question after you answer it.
Yeah.
How many gap fillers do you run into? Meaning there's lots of gaps, right? So you figure there's lots of gaps. That means somebody's not filling them. How many people do you find that really is what they're doing, is they're trying to fill gaps in your work? Or do you think it's just a lack of them that gives you opportunity?
That's a very interesting question. I think, like, in a different way to answer this, I typically don't find a lot of gap fillers because people are providing kind of cookie cutter services, so they tell you this is a service ABC that I offer, pick one, and then this is my price. But for me, is because I am looking for intellectual challenges. So anything like the business challenges and also like make me feel intellectually stimulated, that I want to resolve the problem for the founders and being able to see the success through my experiences. It's something, basically my mission and my goal. So in addition to just kind of like cookie cutter services, I also provide customized services for founders to really diagnose their problems, have specific scope. So those are the things I can confidently say not a lot of people out there in the markets that are offering, but then also even they do, I am confident that I can do better than them too. So so it's just the thing. Long story short, to answer your questions, I don't find a lot of people are providing that kind of services, but this is something that I'm confident our firm can do better.
Yeah, I would say I've been a gap filler, and I learned what I need to do to get the mission done. And that's of course that's given me a lot of experience with things over years, up and down the tech stack, and up and down the business stack as well. One of the things I found is, of course, this is the general advice they give you, which is listen first. And it's difficult sometimes when you're called up to solve problems to give enough time to listen, because then people think, well, what are you doing for me? What have you delivered? Well, I haven't delivered anything. I'm trying to figure out what your problems are.
Yeah.
And then, then maybe it's 2-3 weeks down the road. I haven't said much. I've listened a lot. And then I'm going to have a whole bunch to tell you. Right. But do you find yourself in that kind of a situation? And do you find, where do you think that line of people's patience is that lets you listen and figure it out? Right. How do you judge that?
Yeah, I love it. You're being asking a really great question. And it's definitely like a lot of times what I encounter is like when people don't really know like the ins and outs of the things, they have no patience, right? So for marketing, it feels like a black box to a lot of people. Is I have no idea what exactly marketing is. It just sounds so fluff. I could probably use ChatGPT to generate my 30, 60, 90 days plan. But what makes a difference is really the execution and the nuances that comes into it, and how do you address those nuances and having an even more powerful plan to tackle your problems. So for me is a lot of like, if I talk to a founder and then I told this person, you are anticipating anything like between 60 to 90 days, you will start seeing results. And then this person says that makes sense. That would make me feel like really grateful, because a lot of times people be like, oh, week 1, I want to see this. Week 2, I want to see this. And then it's sometimes it's funny to share. It's like, for example, some of the professionals. This one client I'm talking to right now is essentially a professional service firm, and then it's a referral based, and the firm has a history of 18 years with $1 million of the sales, right? But they've done more kind of like the sales approach, knocking on the door, and the referral based approach as opposed to marketing. So they never done marketing before, but their expectation for marketing is within 7 days I want to see this, 14 days I want to see this, which gives me a little bit of, like just kind of some sort of different basis, right? Like when you do referral, it takes you 18 years to get to like couple $1 million of sales, but you anticipate marketing in 7 days to get you certain sort of sales. It's just not like a very fair comparison, or apples to apples comparison in terms of how people view marketing is. So I think that's everybody's on different wavelengths or different path in terms of how they believe versus not. I'm a marketer at heart, so I strongly believe that marketing is one of the most powerful engines in this world to drive your sales. So for me, I've seen like a great success and a great execution of the powerful marketing campaigns that delivered by all the different big companies, and that's where they are today and why they are driving sales today. So I've seen all the success cases, so I truly know this will work, but that also takes years, right? It's the same thing as when you're building things from scratch. It takes time. It takes time for the campaign to ramp up. It takes time to, ideate what your like a key product offer is and what your ICP is. And it takes time to test and learn to understand what your consumer really wants. Just like when you call someone, it takes 3 days for them to take the phone call back, right? Like, and then how do you anticipate marketing drive you results in 7 days? There's, such a fairy tale, but
half of it right there. Yeah.
So yeah, everything takes time. But then if you do have enough patience and then have strategic mindset and the grits to get there, like execute campaign correctly, working with the right professionals, it will get you there in no time. So I just want to say those things, but I love your question of just, putting things out there, like to really kind of pointing out like different expectations when people are not fully understand what it is. So thank you for asking.
All right, one last question. This is a short answer one, okay? People tend to have strong opinions about a Wharton MBA, one way or another, okay? I'm gonna be very, very honest and say I am completely unimpressed, okay?
Yeah.
But however, I mean, from our discussion here, you obviously have got helps you solve these problems. How much do you think came from Wharton, and how much do you think came from on the ground doing real things?
Yeah, I also have a different opinion in terms of what one MBA really is. So I think like kind of like an elite Ivy League MBA kind of gives you double blades, right? Like it's a double blade sword. It's like people either love you or they hate you. But it's okay. I mean, like, it is what it is. For me, what really gets me to where I am is my experience and also my my personality to shape where I am today. I'm Taiwanese born and raised. I came to the United States with 2 luggages. So I came here for school. But then essentially I bought a one-way ticket and I was like, I feel bored in Taiwan and I want to see how big the world is and how like the other side of the world is. So I got into Northwestern. So I bought one-way ticket and then carried 2 luggage cases and then just flew to here. And then I remember when the plane took off, I told myself I probably wouldn't come back here. So, and then fast forward 15 years later, like I've experienced a lot of different exciting things. I've executed campaign for most sexiest brands in the world. But long story short, none of those like was given by one MBA, right? So right. That's my personality, that's my values and my experience throughout the years that shaped me to who I am today. And then I think one MBA is a cherry on top, and then it's a good networking hub for me to know people who coming from potentially similar or drastically different backgrounds and exchange knowledge and building the network that can potentially be beneficial for life. So So I will only say that's a good part of an MBA program, or even any school program is. I truly cherish the 2 years when I was at school. I consider that 2 of the best years in my life. I still leverage networks until now. I catch up with the classmates once in a while. So those are great memories I adding to my life in this world, but not the only factor shaping to who I am today. So I just want to clarify that. So I think whether it's a good or bad in terms of the kind of perception of an MBA.
Yeah. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
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 I got you. Pete, your wrap-up question. What do you got?
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on, Kathie. That was great. You guys had such a great conversation. It's Friday. Let's turn this thing off. But before we do, everybody, look below Kathie's handsome visage, and you can see her website. Ding, ding, ding. And if you're not sure about that, look, you can go over to LinkedIn and you can find her bio there, and everything is there as well. By the way, we met on Podmatch, and there's no link here. There's nothing to worry about, but just if you're into being a guest on things, if you run a show, I think Podmatch is awesome. I say that because I think the service is great, and that's where we met. So thank you to the Podmatch folks. Anything in conclusion, Kathie, before we go? And thank you so very much for that. You did such a great job. That whole fractional world and ClickFunnels world and courses is so powerful if you have a strategic approach backed by the tactical steps. And I'll just say this, as someone kind of on the edge of that world, it's super impressive with your knowledge about how to leverage even that part of it. So thank you for coming on. Kathie, anything in closing?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on this show. It's super grateful to talk to you guys. And thank you for asking all the great questions to get to know who I am. And then highly recommend this show. And then hopefully we can keep in touch as well. And if you have any marketing questions, hit me up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go grab a Corona.
So, all right, there we go.
Cheers.
Right. We'll see you all next week.